In the emerald waters off the coast of Brazil, during the heat of the day, a dark shadow glides silently towards its prey and attacks. Then, just as quickly, the hunter vanishes. But the citizens of this resort city soon realize that it's not gone for good. Over the next 15 years, 49 more people fall victim along the same popular stretch of beach. 1/3 of the victims die. Sharks are taking over the beaches of Recife, and no one can find a way to stop them. Where did the sharks come from? Why are they here? What is causing so many attacks? Solving this mystery will require two teams of experts, one in Brazil and the other in the United States. They will discover who is the hunter and who is the hunted. During one late autumn in Recife, Brazil, the sea began to change. A southeasterly swell brought in big waves, and many of the young residents of this bustling South American beach city were eager to ride them. Some of the best waves lay far offshore in deep water. Eduardo Rodriguez abandoned the shallows protected by the city's barrier reef to hunt for the perfect wave, alone. Then, without warning, Eduardo was pulled under. A sharp pain penetrated his lower body. In a matter of seconds, the attack was over, but the predator departed with Eduardo's left leg. He struggled for air at the surface, and lifeguards on shore saw his flailing limbs in the distance. A rescue team immediately set off. It discovered Eduardo still alive. This peaceful beach resort was instantly held hostage by a single bite. There had never been a serious shark problem here before, and at first the attack appeared to be an isolated incident. But tragically, this was far from the case. One hot May afternoon, 21-year-old bodyboarder Charles Barbosa arrived at the popular Boa Viagem beach. He paddled out to catch a mounting swell, taking advantage of the few good waves the sea had to offer.
Something told me to leave. A kind of light came to me, telling me to get out, but it wasn't possible.
A strong current caught him and carried him further out. Then suddenly, Charles was forced under by a formidable foe. His right leg locked in the jaws of his aggressor. He struggled and finally managed to break free. The predator then turned, and the two met face to face. No one on the beach could see the battle ensuing below the waves, but surfers out on the water noticed the frenzy and immediately headed for shore. Charles was now abandoned and left to fight alone. He punched with his right hand. but the agile attacker slammed its jaws shut, piercing through bone, and with a single bite, ripped off his hand. Charles struck again with his left hand, but this too was taken by the predator. Both hands were now completely severed, and only then did the culprit disappear. Over the next few years, a rash of shark attacks terrorized the beaches along Recifer's coastline. In the 4 years following Charles Barbosa's attack, sharks claimed 9 more lives. As more people were maimed and killed, authorities struggled to find answers. The mounting number of attacks terrified local residents, and they began to fear the worst. Recifer's economy relied heavily on beach tourism. These attacks threatened the livelihoods of many of the people living there. Thousands of foreigners were likely to holiday elsewhere. The community wondered what had changed. They'd never experienced an outbreak of shark attacks before, and sharks had been there all along. The expansive coastline of northern Brazil provides an ideal habitat for some of the most ancient predators on Earth. These are shark waters. More than 80 species are found in Brazil's waters. The majority of them pose no direct threat to man, but there are some that are known to attack and kill humans. The great white, the mako, the bull shark, the tiger shark, and the giant hammerhead all travel Brazil's Atlantic waters. Previously, they had coexisted with the city's residents without serious problem. Shark attacks had been exceptionally rare, as they are in most places. But in Recife, things had now changed, and attacks were happening all too often. Something had caused at least one species of shark to begin to attack humans. And the hunter's technique suggested which species was to blame. Following his attack, Charles Barbosa began to hemorrhage uncontrollably. Lifeguards on shore could now see the commotion. Surfers screamed at Charles to paddle back, but he couldn't, and he began to drown. Lifeguard Antonio de Abreu was there that day.
Some surfers who had already left the ocean tried to hold us back to keep us from going in, but we knew our mission, so we went to help him.
Charles was sinking into a sea of red as the lifeguards arrived.
When we approached Charles, I saw that his hand was already cut off. I was carrying the safety float and I asked him to hold it. He said to me, "How?" And I said, "With the other hand." We had not realized that he had lost the other hand. When he raised his arm from the water and saw it, he screamed that he wanted to die.
The lifeguards secured Charles and rushed him to shore. But as they worked to stabilize him, Antonio became aware of an eerie presence in the water.
It was then that, by curiosity, I looked out to sea. The water was filled with blood, and the shark was still there.
The shark never left. And that was the signature of the most feared shark on the planet. The Great White.
Fury, fear, hell, rage, deliverance. We take you into the heart and soul of World War I. Live with the people that made this war happen and those who suffered its consequences. With rare amateur film and fully colorized HD footage, see history firsthand. Experience the most sensitive and intimate portrait of war ever created. Apocalypse World War I, Monday nights at these times on National Geographic HD.
If you're talking tongues, the answer's not forsaken. I was making up for daytime spent.
LG Ultra HD TV.
You're unbelievable.
It was an era where fashion went flannel.
They captured what youth was going through.
Reality became unreal.
It has to be outrageous.
A time when black and white
Good music is good music.
came in living color.
The police did this!
Where bad behavior met good vibrations, and change meant anything was possible.
Everybody was waiting for the world to blow up.
The 90s, the decade that connected us. Sunday nights at these times on National Geographic HD. The Car SOS Boys are back, restoring classic motors and changing lives along the way.
What would it mean to have that back on the road?
Everything.
For Fuzz and Tim, the end of the road is just the beginning as they battle against time and each other to get the job done.
Mint.
10 new challenges, 10 big surprises. Brand new season, Car SOS. Thursday at these times on National Geographic HD.
Great whites, like all predators, risk serious injury when they engage prey. So in order to safeguard themselves, they use a special technique. They bite once and then retreat. Only after the prey has bled out does the shark return to its motionless meal, thereby ensuring its own safety. Had this been the predator waiting for Charles to die, and the one terrifying the city? With the threat of an infamous killer prowling just offshore, the city feared more attacks. Media outlets around the world now focus their attention on Recife. The residents here could only hope that the unusual and random attacks would end. But why were the encounters happening so frequently? And why would a great white shark have made this popular beach its home? The citizens of Recife had always believed they were immune to shark attacks, but this inexplicable outbreak had many on edge. The statistics steadily worsened. 22 people taken in just 5 years, and all on the same small stretch of beach. Visitors to the area began to thin out, putting the city's vital tourist industry at risk. And unless the authorities could find some fast answers, more victims were bound to fall prey. But no one could understand why this was happening. The city had always relied on a natural feature that kept its beaches safe from predators. Recife was named after the Portuguese word for reef, and the reef lay just offshore. It was a natural barrier to the open sea, providing protection to swimmers, waders, and bathers. Most locals used this rocky boundary as their limit, believing it kept predators out of the shallows. Cristiana Damiano is a marine biologist and a reef specialist.
This reef extended for like almost 5 miles, and it works as a natural barrier.
Dr. Fabio Hazin is an oceanographer and shark expert from Recife.
For the bathers, if they stay inside this protection, they almost don't have any risk of being attacked by sharks.
The chances of a shark attack are reduced if swimmers remain in the natural pools formed during low tide. But for some people, the real attraction lies beyond the barrier wall, where the waves are better.
It looks like an ordinary place, but it's a place where we can find the sharks beyond the reef.
The problem is that the surfers, they have to go away beyond the reef so that they can get the good waves, and that's why they get more exposed.
But something else beyond the reef may have been attracting the sharks to the coast. An endless number of ships navigated these deep waters, and they did something sailors had done for centuries: dumped rubbish directly into the ocean. Over 600 vessels passed just offshore from the afflicted Brazilian beaches every year. Could the stench of their refuse have been luring hunters from the depths? Sharks have a sophisticated sense of smell. Their highly evolved olfactory receptors can gather scent from around 2 kilometers away. Great whites can also stick their heads a meter out of the water. They're the only fish to do this, and it's usually to inspect potential prey at the surface. But in some instances, they do it to gather scent. Were the ships luring the sharks to the coast? Greg Erickson is a biologist at Florida State University. Dr. Gregory Skomel is a shark specialist from the Massachusetts Marine Fisheries.
I suppose having fishing boats or just boats in general dumping trash into the water is going to attract sharks. Is that true?
You're dealing with an animal that runs on pure instinct, that's tuned to its senses. The brain of a shark is largely committed to smell. The shark's not going to say, well, that's not something I want to check out because I just ate. No, it's going to move in there, it's going to check it out every time, and they're just going to keep coming.
You know, if you have a lot of vessels, particularly fishing boats, that are dumping bycatch out to sea, you're just going to have a trail of food essentially leading right into town.
And it's not just smell that draws sharks to ships. In a vast ocean, food is often scarce, especially an easy meal. And the sharks rely on another crucial sensory asset to find food. They can hone in on sounds inaudible to humans, and their hearing can pick up low-frequency vibrations, like those of an injured fish or a boat engine. This long-range sense allows sharks to detect artificially produced sounds from several kilometers away. The unnatural drone of engines would certainly have caught the sharks' attention. And they seem to associate the sound of motors with food, like a dinner bell.
We have done a study, and we found out there was a very strong correlation between the maritime traffic and the occurrence of attacks. So we do believe that this traffic is one of the contributing factors to the problem.
Whenever there were high numbers of ships passing by the beaches, there were more attacks. The sharks appeared to follow the ocean liners right along the coast. But ships had always passed through this region without causing problems. Something else had to have been behind the spike in attacks. Media crews continued to cover the tragic encounters. And the news kept getting worse. In the 7 years following the first attack, 28 more people were maimed. At first, the state government denied there was a shark problem, but eventually they banned surfing. Recife became the only city in the world where the sport was illegal. Violators risked losing their boards and being fined, but many people braved the waters anyway. Recife had held annual surf competitions since the 1970s without a single bite. The city now posted signs suggesting people shouldn't go beyond the reef, but they made no mention of sharks. Most of the recent incidents with sharks had been outside the reef. But this wasn't the only place in the sea where people were being attacked. An aerial photo of Boa Viagem Beach, where Charles Barbosa was attacked, revealed something very unsettling.
Charles Barbosa in particular was bodyboarding out in this region right here, and during a rising tide, he was attacked right at that spot. And you can see it's not far from the shore.
A large break is visible in the reef.
You do see that strong barrier reef that gives folks a sense that they're protected, gives folks the sense that, well, the reef extends all the way across when actually it probably doesn't go top to bottom. There's channels that cut through here.
The barrier wall does not, in fact, provide absolute protection. Fabio and Chris take a closer look at the reef structure.
There are some gaps along the reef. Some of them are small like this one, and some of them are real big over there, and the sharks can just get through.
Charles had been inside a gap, and his attacker had discovered the hole in the protective barrier. Previously, most people thought that only those outside the reef were at risk, but now it seemed that anyone in the water was a potential target. In fact, there were holes up and down the entire stretch. And the problem was even worse at high tide. Twice a day, there was an open gateway when the reef could do nothing to keep out predators. Sharks could come over the reef during the rising tide, and then escape with the outgoing tide. The area thought for so long to be a safe haven was actually vulnerable. But great whites still weren't likely to venture into these shallow waters. The tidal variation here was too small to accommodate their immense size, and it would have been difficult for them to navigate around the rocky barrier. So if the predator wasn't a great white, then what was it? Piedade Beach was another popular spot. A small church perched along the shore offered hope to some that this area would be safe. One July afternoon, surfer Mario Carneiro was scanning the horizon, but not for sharks. He was searching for the perfect set, like other surfers who were defying the ban. It was nearing the end of the day, but Mario knew that if he didn't move soon, he'd miss his chance. Uneven waves made it difficult for him to get into position. Then, as he waited for a wave, Mario noticed a massive shadow approaching him with speed. Instinctively, he lay flat and pulled his limbs from the water. The hunter revealed itself, then sank down under his board, sizing him up in one pass. As the shark doubled back, Mario braced for impact, with only a thin layer of fiberglass separating him from certain death. When the shark struck, he leapt off the board. The attacker ripped into his surfboard, but got only a mouthful of fiberglass. The shark swallowed the man-made morsel, and Mario reclaimed his board. But the aggressor was relentless. It returned, nudging at the surfboard with its giant head. Then, suddenly, it disappeared into the murky sea. Mario desperately searched for the shark, knowing that if it assaulted him from below, he'd have no chance of survival. He tapped the water with his hand, trying to lure the shark out of hiding. But his strategy backfired. A mouthful of menacing teeth seized his right hand and pulled him into the water. Trapped beneath the surface, Mario then made the ultimate sacrifice. Using the saw-like teeth of the shark, he sliced off his own forearm. The predator disappeared into the depths with Mario's hand. Somehow, Mario managed to get back onto his board. Miraculously, a small wave planted him just a few meters from shore, and he stumbled onto the sand. His prayers were heard, and Mario survived his terrifying ordeal. But the city's prayers still went unanswered. However, the shark that amputated Mario's hand also removed 2 large chunks from his surfboard. And this time, it left behind a critical clue: bite marks that could possibly reveal the identity of his assailant.
Greg, this is the surfboard of Mario Carnero. So who are the possible culprits that did this?
We know the white, we know the tiger will attack surfers on surfboards. In some cases, you may not know exactly what kind of species. There might not be enough information. In this case, I think it is like a fingerprint at this point.
The bite marks aren't consistent with either the great white or tiger shark. But the jaws of another shark identify the attacker.
Oh, this is perfect. Look at that. We've got these punctures right here on the bottom side of the board, and we have these lower teeth, which are perfectly adapted for creating that kind of an indentation on the board. And then you've got this nice, clean